Who we got in chat? We got Miranda, a ghost biker. There we go. Hey, get ready for Kris Sumner of Soul Sisters Paranormal in a second. Here we go.
Is it just me? Or is it getting crazier out there?
Oh, it's always getting crazier out there. Jeez, it reminds me every time when we go through that intro. Hey, everybody, welcome to Paranormal Into the Night right here on the Late Late Horror Show YouTube channel. Thank you for everybody. Look who's in the chat. Ghost Biker. Hey, Miranda, what's going on? Good to see you. Edward Stewart, Connie Clary, RTN, what's going on? Hi, boy, coffee and low girl donuts. What's going on? I got that in reverse, right? Rich Cat Ranch, what's going on? Ginger, good to see you. Who else is here? Everybody will start flowing in, I'm sure. Black Roses is here. Night Fright Talk Show, good to see everybody. John McKee just popped in. What's going on? Listen, thumbs up, everybody. Give the channel a subscribe, hit that bell notification, give a join if you want, but check out all the links below for the guest info. Takes you right to the website where you can go to Soul Sisters Paranormal website, and from there you can go to YouTube and all the other links that are associated with everything they do, which is very cool. And I'm going to bring her on. I'm not going to keep her waiting too much longer. Kris Sumner, what is going on? How are you doing?
I'm great, Dino. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm happy. CJM753BC. I have to say the whole name. How are you doing? Good to see you. And Kathy, what's going on? So Miranda is in the chat, and you guys are co-owners of what?
We're co-owners of the historic Scott County Jail in Huntsville, Tennessee. And I know she mentioned it when she was on your show, but essentially we started this business last year, and it's inside of a jail that was built in 1904. I'm currently sitting in the jail tonight for the show. It was built in 1904. It was in operation as a jail until 2008. And it really sat vacant until last year when Miranda and I opened the business, and we opened a true crime museum, a crime and punishment museum, as well as what we call a paranormal research location, because the jail is extremely haunted. It's probably one of the most haunted locations that I've ever been in and associated with. And so it's just one of those things that we really came together first as friends and then as business partners. And to us, it's just an amazing business to be a part of.
That's awesome. And yes, she is there at the jail. So who knows what'll happen? And you got a jailhouse cat.
We do.
Named Sally, right?
Yeah. Sally the jail cat. She's around here somewhere. She may pop up on the counter behind me here. You never know what she's going to do. But yeah, she was a little stray that came in, and she really became our mascot here at the jail. And when we first brought her into the jail, she stays in here at night. We were had a little bit of trepidation about whether or not she would mess with our spirits or the spirits would mess with her. But it seems like they've got a pretty good symbiotic relationship going on, and she loves it here.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Sully the cat. I think that's really cool. And yeah, who knows what might happen? Keep a lookout, you guys, in the background. If the cat pops up and looks, you know how it goes, right?
Right.
But yeah, Goomba, good to see you. Tim Cockrell, good to see you too. What I'd like to, and I have to touch on the true crime. Although I think when I have Miranda back on again, I want to get into that a little bit deeper with her too, since you guys got something dedicated specifically to that.
Mhm.
But you do have EVPs in video that we're going to play throughout the show, so that always makes for an interesting watch. But yeah, let's start talking about things and take it from there. Again, check out the website, everybody, and the links below. Their YouTube channel, again, I was talking before. I love that because I'm looking for something fresh and new, and a lot of these paranormal groups don't do it the way I've seen like Miranda or even Soul Sisters Paranormal on YouTube do it. The channels, you guys put it together, the investigations in video format there, and it's kind of like a little show, right?
Mhm.
And it's just amazing, and I love it. I've kind of fallen back to that instead of going to the Travel Channel all the time for these shows. And I think it's more real, is what I think. But yeah,
Well, and thank you for pointing that out. Kind of what we want to do is for us, the historical perspective is extremely important in the paranormal because without the history, you're really not going to have the paranormal. And without understanding that history, you're not going to be able to understand the paranormal. So for us, we really want to give a very detailed historical narrative to all of the locations that we investigate and then bring in any unexplained evidence that we find during those investigations. But without that history, we just think it'd be a disservice to go into these locations, investigate it, attempt to talk to these spirits, and not really give a nod as to why it's important, why this historic preservation is important. And so that's why it's a little bit difficult in this age of instant gratification with YouTubers and
yeah.
live streams for Instagram and such, because we do take time to put these together. We produce them. It takes us, a month or so to go through all of the evidence, to really put together the research, and then edit and produce the entire video. So it's a little bit different, but it's a format that we really enjoy, and we've got great YouTube fans and Facebook fans that really seem to embrace that method. And for us, it's something that works.
Well, and that's where you get the real, somewhat. Listen, everything's biased, and do you believe it? Do you not believe it? But I feel what you're doing and the way you do it lends a little bit more towards the factual side of things, other than Instagram or TikTok or any of these other short. Even the YouTubes and short now are just, it's all for shock value, and a lot of it's fake. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So you have to go to shows like you do, and Miranda, and and others,
Mhm.
to get kind of the real paranormal experience nowadays, because it's changed so much. It's become entertainment, and every social platform is all about entertainment, views, and all that stuff. So that's why I have you on. Hopefully, and listen, I got to talk to you about that video that Miranda did, because it's still freaking me out, where she was laying up in the cell. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And you're hearing voices, you're hearing footsteps, and this thing wants her out of there. So she's sleeping through it all. Can you sleep through an investigation like that too?
We have, yeah, we have. I mean, there's been
Okay.
locations where we've been at that we sleep. It's not uncommon for us to be here at the jail for long hours into the night. So yeah, we've slept there as well. And
Okay.
it is a very interesting feeling when you go to these locations and sleep. But to us, it's just one of those things that we've really embraced within our investigation style.
Yeah, yeah. No, you have to. And listen, uh, I'm not sure. I've been to some paranormal investigations. Not a whole lot of activity. The stuff that had happened um, didn't scare me to the point of. But I'm trying to think, if I was put in that situation, I heard something like all that kind of activity. Like, how would I react? I think I'm pretty brave, but I don't know. Uh, yeah.
There are those moments of trepidation for sure. You can't go into these locations and really have your sense of sight is not the primary sense at that moment, right? So your hearing
Right.
becomes acute, your feeling becomes acute, your smell becomes extremely acute, and so you use those different senses. And it is startling at some points when you are in these investigations and you hear a voice or you hear a door slam. But for us, that's part of the experience. That's why we're there.
Oh yeah.
Soul Sisters Paranormal is an all-female team. And the one thing that we do that's a little bit different for a lot of paranormal teams is that we really go in with a research mindset. So we try to debunk things before we call it paranormal. We go in and we really try to control the environment as much as we can,
Mhm.
i.e., light pollution, noise pollution, and really try to rule those things out first and
Yeah.
go in with a scientific perspective. And then what we come out with is what we call the unexplainable. So to your point earlier, all of these people are trying to get you to believe these things. I feel that our goal is to really, one, give you the historical narrative, and then two, give you what we call unexplainable behind that. And because if there's something that that we don't understand in the moment and we can come up with a logical physical explanation, then we want to have that dialogue for sure. But for us, we're not trying to get anybody to believe us per se with these videos. What we're putting out there is, this is how we conduct our investigations. This is what we control for in these investigations. And when we find these pieces of evidence, we call them unexplainable. And so that's really kind of how we put our investigations together.
No, listen, well said, well said. I think that's exactly what paranormal investigators, uh, the whole paranormal investigating thing was meant to be, is
Mhm.
to debunk, put science in there to get psychics, mediums, whatever, but really dig in and debunk everything before you jump to conclusions. Again, we're living in a world of instant gratification, like you said, and
Mhm.
we just want to be scared, a lot of people. So yes, I think that's definitely what it's all about, for sure. Is
Mhm.
there anything in your early life that really spawned you into the paranormal? Like anything happen?
Not really, anything in our early childhood. I'm a twin, so my sister and I, we already have an interesting connection to begin
Yeah.
with, and she's really the other half of Soul Sisters Paranormal now. And so we've always had an innate sense of there's something after this, right? We go on to some other realm after this, and so we've always been really guided by that belief, and as well as our Christian background as well, that belief that there is an afterlife.
Mhm.
And so we always knew that if we're made up of energy, and energy can't be created or destroyed, something has to happen to that. And so we always said,
Exactly.
yeah, so we always said, if we get the opportunity to conduct a paranormal investigation, we will take that chance. And in 2014, we were in Moundsville, West Virginia, which is where the West Virginia State Penitentiary is located.
Mm.
And coincidentally, our granddaddy used to be, or our grandpa was a prison guard there when it was in operation.
Mhm.
And so we spent the night in that facility when we were up there in Moundsville. And what we were left with was things that we couldn't explain. We're an all-female team. We heard footsteps running, we heard doors slamming, voices when we knew that nobody was in those cell blocks. And it really, really catapulted us into what Soul Sisters has become. And to me, it's something that, as best we can, we want to elevate this subculture of paranormal into a more mainstream conversation. And that's really what we try to do every investigation that we go on.
How was it investigating there?
Oh, it's fantastic. We've been there a couple of times, and it is
Big
very,
one.
it's a very active location, and we've able to make contact with what we believe was the spirit of a murderer that was in that location.
Mhm.
We've heard footsteps. We've seen apparitions in that location. So Moundsville, or the West Virginia State Penitentiary, was a great location for us to investigate.
Nice, nice, nice. Hey, Leanne Roche, what's going on? Goomba. Hey, Ken Shoemaker, what's going on? Good to see each and every one of you. Be sure to check out the website in the links below. Thumbs up and all that good stuff. So yes, let's get all the EVPs and the videos out of the way. The exciting, well, it's all exciting, but the exciting stuff. Let's get it. We are going to do the first EVP is from the Ma Barker house, which
Okay.
you can probably talk about a little bit, and then we'll play the EVP. So,
Yeah.
what was that like going to the Ma Barker? And I've never heard of the Ma Barker house, so you're gonna have to tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, a lot of people haven't. So the Ma Barker house was the site of the 1935 shootout between Ma and Fred Barker, who were two members of the Barker Carpus gang, and the FBI. Now, what's interesting about this house is we were the first team allowed to investigate it. And in 2016, it was actually moved from its original location. So it's in a small town in Florida called Ocklawaha. And it was moved from its location in 2016. They put it on a barge and they floated it across the lake, and so they put it on a new piece of property.
Huh.
But the shootout was interesting because in 1935, January 16th, 1935, the FBI surrounded this house where Ma and Fred had held up, and the longest FBI shootout in history occurred on that day, and it
Mm.
culminated in Ma and Fred Barker being killed inside this house. Now, before it became the shootout location, it was just a rental house on the side of a lake called Lake Weir. And what we wanted to do when we went and investigated this house is we wanted to do a couple of things. We wanted to see if the house, because it had been moved, if the house would still hold those spirits, rather than the land that the shootout actually occurred on, because
Mhm.
we believed that the spirits would have moved with the house. And so when we went in, it was a two-part investigation. So the first night, which would have been on the anniversary of the shootout, we left some equipment, stationary equipment, some voice recorders, a voice recorder that we had pre-recorded questions on that we hit play, and we left and we locked the house and we left. So we
Okay.
knew we had complete control of the environment. And so when we came back, we listened to all of the evidence and we watched all of the footage, and we captured some very interesting things. We captured door slams, what sounded like a chair being drug. We captured disembodied voices. And this is a vacant house that sits on 40 acres by itself. So we knew that there was nobody in there. And so 2 weeks later, my twin sister and I, Jenny, we went into the house, and we were there for about 5 hours, and we used various tools and techniques during that investigation, and we came up with some very compelling unexplained evidence. So the clip I'm going to show you, we were actually using a spirit box, which, to those in the audience who may not know, a spirit box is, generally speaking, an AM FM radio that's been modified to very quickly sweep through frequencies. So when you turn it on and you start the sweep motion, it sounds like as it's going through the white noise, or as it's going through the frequencies. So the
Gotcha.
idea is that spirits can use the white noise to communicate with us. And so again, we're out in the middle of nowhere. This thing is small as my hand. It doesn't have a large range. So it was very unlikely that we were really picking up a lot of radio stations. And we started asking questions that it responded intelligently to. So Ma's name, Ma Barker, her real name was Arizona Donnie Kate Clark. And so in this clip, you'll hear me say, can you say the name Arizona? But we get a response of Kate, which was interesting because that was part of her name.
Hmm.
And then you'll hear also, we asked what happened in this room, and you'll hear the response as you play the clip.
Okay. Yeah. Let's go ahead and play the clip and then talk about it a little bit more afterwards. So here we go.
Ma Barker, are you with us? Freddie? If you're with us, can you say the name Arizona? Can you say Blackburn? Thank you. What happened in this room? I thought you said we the ones killed.
What the heck? that was a lot.
Yeah, it really was. And a lot of people, I mean, there's different camps with regard to the spirit box. Some people love it, some people hate it.
Right.
For us, this was the investigation that really led me to love the spirit box, because again, it's saying things in there that really a radio station would not say, right?
Right.
And also, if you listen to it, you can hear the frequencies changing behind those phrases. So, when it says they murdered us, we the ones dead, you can still hear the frequency change. Yet you've got that phrase coming out, which to me was absolutely fascinating. When I said, "Can you say the name Blackburn?" Ma and Fred rented this house under the alias of TC Blackburn. That was their alias that they used.
Mhm.
And so for the spirit box to say Blackburn, when I asked it to say Blackburn, was to me, it's unexplainable. I can't explain how that happened. So this was the investigation that for us really, put in my mind that the spirit box is a valuable tool to use.
Oh yeah. Listen, you can clearly listen, and the sounds are not it goes with what you're doing. The
Mhm.
paranormal, it's actually responding the way you're expecting it to. So And then especially being out there on, you said, what, 40 acres
Mhm.
in nowhere. And this was after the house was moved, right?
Correct. Yeah. So the house was moved in 2016, and the Barker Carpus gang. I mean, I can do a whole dissertation on just that because it's such a
Mm,
fascinating story about
yeah.
this gang. The Barker Carpus gang, they were nomadic in life. They were the most prolific gang in the 19 between 1929 1939 gangster era,
Mhm.
and they amassed more money as a gang than all of the other gangs combined. And so, but because they were nomadic, they really didn't have a home base. And this was another example of that. So for me, there would be no cause for the spirits of these individuals to stay with the land because they had no ties to it. But they did have ties to the house because they died there. And so it was my theory that even though the house was moved 2.5 miles from the original shootout location, that the
Yeah.
spirits were going to stay there. And I think we captured evidence of that.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Um, so yeah, I mean, well, things can attach themselves to property, to
Mhm.
the house itself, or to objects. Even found that out too over time. But is this uh, where the movie White Heat came from with James Cagney, Ma Barker, and
Yes, so
the
that
son
would have
and
been
the
it. Yeah, and
yeah,
like I said, this the story in and of itself is just fascinating, and it's one of those that I absolutely love to talk about because another interesting fact about it is we lived my family and I we grew up about five
mhm,
six miles from that location, so we always heard the story of the Ma Barker, the shootout, and all of that, and. When we did the investigation, this would have been in 2016. When we did the investigation, nobody knew this story. And so when we put out our video and it told the story of the Barker Carpus gang and how they died in this shootout in this little one light town in Central Florida, we had so many people come up to us. We had newspapers, we had television articles done or
mhm.
television reports done on us because nobody knew or nobody remembered the story. And
Wow.
that's what we love to do with our videos is to put that out there and say this happened. This was the historical significance of this location. And so that to me is it's really one of the investigation that I'm one of the most proud of.
Yeah, no, you should be. I think bringing out history like in that way is kind of a cool thing because you don't want history to get lost. I mean, it's out there somewhere, but moving the house like they did, and then you figuring out, oh, hey, there's a story behind this, so then going
Mhm.
there and investigating and getting what you did is awesome. And listen, I love the 20s, 30s gangster, stuff. I mean, who doesn't love Bonnie and Clyde? Well, I guess
Right?
not everybody, but listen, I love that type of thing, and I love that
Mhm.
era. So
Yeah. Well, I
this,
mean, yeah, I mean, to your point, not to interrupt, I mean, you're talking
yeah,
about a time when you've got the Great Depression going on, you've got prohibition going on. There's no real federal jurisdiction, so these
right.
gangsters are crossing state lines, and it's not
Mm,
until Hoover comes in that we really have a national law enforcement. But people love the gangsters, Bonnie and Clyde. I
right.
mean, even Ma and Fred Barker and her Barker boys. They were revered. It wasn't until they started killing people that they were really vilified. But
Yeah.
I think the gangster era is just a
Oh, I love it.
fascinating research
Yeah.
topic.
And that's why I love me some James Cagney, man.
Right?
White Heat. Hey ma. Oh, it's great. Hey, the Glockter, what's going on? Connie Hilton. One Sean Bond, what's going on? Feeling much better. I see. Much love to each and every one of you guys. But yeah, let's move on then. Oh man,
Okay.
yeah, this story is so great. Oh my god! But let's move on to the Lizzie Borden house.
Okay.
Listen, we've been Lizzie Borden to death, but doesn't mean it's not going to still be interesting.
Mhm.
Some people say it's a bunch of BS. A lot of people do get stuff, but you don't know what to believe or not to believe. If
Mhm.
you let's listen to this. Well, go ahead, talk about it a little bit.
Okay, so when we investigated the Lizzie Borden house, and when we investigate every location, the very first thing that we do is, even before we cross the threshold, we turn on our voice recorders because we feel that EVPs are the hardest thing to debunk, right? As I said before, we're an all female team. So when
Right.
we go to a location and we're capturing men's voices or children's voices, it's very hard for me to debunk those. And the
Oh
Lizzie
yeah.
Borden house was no different. So we had our voice recorders going and we were setting up some of our stationary equipment, and we were all just kind of going around the house doing that. And so my investigator, my twin sister Jenny, and our friend investigator Cara were sitting in the room where Andrew Borden's body was found, so in the parlor area. So the rest of us were setting up the equipment and stuff. So they had finished their portion and they were just sitting down there talking. So we hadn't even begun the investigation yet. So we had investigated the Villisca axe murder house prior to this. And so Jenny and Cara were sitting in the parlor talking, and they said, Jenny says, you know, at Villisca, we got some good stuff. And Cara said, yeah, this is our second axe murder house. And being axed to death would be a horrible way to die. And this is the EVP that we captured.
Okay, so let's play this one, the Lizzie Borden house EVP.
This is our second axe murder house.
Right. Villisca, we had some good stuff.
That just seems like a horrible way to go.
Yeah.
This is our second axe murder house.
Right. Villisca, we had some good stuff.
That just seems like a horrible way to go.
Yeah.
This is our second axe murder house.
Right. Villisca, we had some good stuff.
That just seems like a horrible way to go.
Yeah.
Okay, I see it. And I also saw that axe. Was that your sister sitting on the couch there?
No, that was Cara. Jenny's sitting off camera there.
Okay, okay. Yeah,
No, that's
way to make that clip really stand out with the axe on the couch. But yeah, no, I hear it.
Yeah. So, and that's just one of 5 or 6 EVPs that we captured that night. And like I said, the interesting thing about that is it's a male's voice. It is a whisper. It's a male's voice, but it's intelligent. So it's essentially listening to the conversation, and it's saying, yeah, it was a horrible way to die. And that to me is very hard to debunk because, you know, there's nobody else sitting in that room. You can see Michelle off in the other room, but she's, you know, focused on what she's doing. So there's nobody else that I can explain that made the "it was" voice.
Oh yeah, listen, if you're that's the thing with EVPs. If you play them to people, you know what I mean, like we're doing right now. You can go one of either you can say this is a bunch of BS. Listen, it's either radio signals, it's something that's not, you know, there's just a hard line between believing, right?
Absolutely.
And then there's people who just think you're doing it on purpose. You know what I mean? You're inserting those voices in there. But if you're the one who actually goes and gets the recording, like anything in life, I've said this a million times, unless it happens to you, you're still, you may not ever believe. And even when it happens to you, you still have that little bit of, oh, what just happened? And it's a funny thing that when time goes by, after those things happen to you, whether it be paranormal or whatever, it gets distant, and then you start doubting just a little bit more. You know what I mean? So it's tough. It's tough, but you definitely need to have it happen to you.
Yeah, and it is interesting. And to your point, you know, sitting here and playing this, you know, people in the audience might say, to your point, you know, that's BS. They're making it up. But you know, for me, the response is to what end? You know, when I put my YouTube videos out there, we don't monetize for that very reason. So when somebody says, "Oh, you're just doing it for money," we make no money off of this. Everything that we do is self-funded. And so this isn't about money. This isn't about anything like that. This is doing something that we enjoy, putting together a historical narrative of these locations that deserve their place in history, and then putting unexplainable things that in that moment we could not explain. And so, you know, that's kind of how we approach that dialogue, that when it comes up with people, because there's no end game for us other than really enjoying what we're doing and putting it out there for others to see.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. And everybody should, and I'm going to take you off screen real quick and bring you back because for some reason it's breaking up. Maybe that might help it. So I'm going to bring her right back real quick. And who knows?
Is that better?
It's still acting up a little bit. It was fine when we started, but listen, we'll be fine. We can hear you and kind of see you. All right. So it's all good. But yeah, it's definitely something that you definitely sometimes have to. And listen, the first time I took a recorder and I got something, immediately I just like, nah, listen, now I know, you know what I mean? So it's just a thing. That's all. But let's get to the next one. It's Posttown
Mhm.
EVP. Posttown. I'm not. Tell me a little bit about that. I don't even know what you're really talking about there.
So this was actually in Posttown Elementary. It's an elementary school in Posttown, Ohio,
Oh,
and
and let me say this. I'm sorry,
mhm.
didn't mean to cut you off. But everybody, if you do go to her YouTube channel, Soul Sisters Paranormal, we're seeing bits and pieces of all of the videos that she's got on her channel. So I would say go over there, and instead of seeing a minute, you'll get to see 45 minutes or 30 minutes or even longer in some cases. So definitely go over and check out the YouTube channel. It's really a fun watch and interesting if you're into the paranormal. So with that said, Posttown, go for it.
So this is in Posttown, Ohio. It's the Posttown Elementary School. This school was built in 1937. It was in operation until the late 2000s or the early 2000s, and then it really sat vacant until the current owners took it over and allowed paranormal investigators to go in and research it. Now, there weren't really any deaths per se in the elementary school when it was in operation as a school, but the
Mhm.
interesting thing is that it sits on land right adjacent to a railroad track, and there's been multiple train crashes in that area, and the school and the property was used as triage location.
Hmm.
So the train wreck in 1891, there was another train wreck, a pretty substantial one in 1910, July 4th, 1910, in which 30 people were killed. There was a head-on collision between two trains, and so that's why the theory is that this school is haunted. So when we did the investigation, we were actually on a collaboration investigation with Miranda from Ghost Biker Explorations, and as well as Sarah Jane from the podcast Paranormally Blonde. And so there were 4 females on the property that night. We were the only people in the building and on the property. And as I said before, when we go to these locations, we'll set up stationary equipment. So in some of the various rooms, we had cameras, we had voice recorders, and some other what we call trigger items. We had some laser grids and stuff. And so we had left a voice recorder in a room that everyone calls the doll room. It's really
Mm.
that's got like 1,000 dolls in it. It's really wild. Anyway, so we had the voice recorder sitting in that room, and we had all gone downstairs, and we decided to start the investigation again. So all 4 of us are walking up the stairs, and about the room was about 50 to 60 feet away from these stairs. So I split on this clip. I split the screen so you can see us walking up the stairs. You know where all 4 of us are, and then the other side of the screen, you'll see the room where the voice recorder is. So as we're going up the stairs, you'll hear Sarah Jane say, we're coming up, don't spook us. And in the room, again, about 50 or 60 feet down the hallway, captured this EVP.
Okay, so here we go. A Posttown EVP. Wow. And again, thanks for sharing the clips with on the channel here. But who'd she come with?
Mhm.
What do you get out of that?
For me, it's kind of interesting because it's almost sounding like they're responding to Sarah Jane, like who's here with her, who'd she come with,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to me, it sort of sounds like maybe a teenager,
Mm,
and just kind of saying, well, who'd she come with, and so to me, it's just a very interesting EVP and one that again I can't explain because you can see where all 4 of us are,
right.
and there's obviously nobody else in that room, yet this voice recorder is capturing that EVP, which to me is pretty fascinating.
Oh yeah, for sure. Anytime there's an intelligent type of EVP where it's responding to something that's happening or answering a question is just unreal. And Ken Shoemaker, boy, you're just going on with your stories in the chat. You've got a lot that's going on in your world, right? Paranormal stuff going on. So, listen, I'd say send me an email, and if you're able to come on, I'd love to hear your stories. But usually when I do that, nobody ever does. So it's okay. But you're sharing it in the chat, anyways. But good luck with all of that that's going on. Somebody somewhere is connected and picking up the energy, whether it's you or somebody in the family, who knows. But Monster Radio, hello. And who else was here? Just want to make sure I get everybody. Somebody else came in here. Seth the Welsh, what's going on? And Ran Hen, good to see you guys. So what are your thoughts, Kris, on these spirits who linger around? I know everybody says time isn't kind of, what is your opinion on the whole, like, they've been around 100 years. Why do they want to stay here? Why are they not moving on? What's going on there? The intelligent ones.
Well, for me personally, I think there's three reasons and three theories that we kind of operate on. The first one is that they have unfinished business. And I know we hear that term in popular media a lot, but I do think that there is an element to that in what we're doing and what we're seeing. So for some reason, something has to be fulfilled or an event has to occur before they can transcend to whatever's next, that, heaven, the next realm, whatever you want to call it. And I'll give you a brief example of this. In 1986, my granddaddy passed away, and I was very, very close with my Nana, my grandmother. I'm even named after her. And so we were extremely close. And in 2016, I had this dream. It was the most vivid dream I've ever had. And my granddaddy came to me in this dream, and he looked at me and he said, "I'm waiting on your Nana. You're going to be getting a call soon." And, I really didn't know what to do with any of that information. To me, it was just this very vivid dream. And about 2 weeks later, Nana was in an accident. She fell and broke her hip, and we had to put her into hospice at that point, and she ended up getting MRSA. And so on the day that she passed, and with permission from my family, I looked at my sister and I said, "I know where she's going. She's going to the spot that was depicted in my dream in the house where she and granddaddy lived." And it was a very specific spot. It was right outside his home office, right outside the door of his home office in this house.
Okay.
And so we took two K2 meters, which are devices designed to measure energy, and one was black and one was gray. And we went to the house and we stood in the middle of the room there, right in the threshold of that hallway where the dream was depicted. And I said, "Nana, are you here?" And those K2 meters started going off. I said, "Okay, step back. Can you just go to the black meter?" And it did. And now these meters are only about 3 feet apart. And it did. And I said, "Okay, stop that. Can you go to the gray meter?" And it stopped on the black and went to the gray. And I said, "Are you here with granddaddy?" And the meter started going crazy again. So through a series of questions, we were able to determine what I felt was Nana had met up with granddaddy, and then they both ascended together because we went back a week later because we want to test our results. We went back a week later, took the exact same K2 meter, stood in the exact same spot, and asked the exact same questions because I have it all on video. And that time, nothing, not a blip, not one thing happened. So for me, granddaddy's unfinished business was that he was waiting on Nana. Nana didn't have any unfinished business. So I'm not going to go try to talk to her or think she's a ghost or a spirit because I don't think she's here anymore. So that was her unfinished business. The next theory is I think that they're stuck. They know that there's something after this, but they can't find the way to get there. And I think we see that a lot with children spirits. They're not sure who to approach or how to get to the light. So for example, we were investigating Hales Bar Dam, which is a dam in Guild, Tennessee. And it had a series of tunnels that ran underneath it in the 1960s. Then kids would use those tunnels to get from one side of the river to the other to go to school. And there was an accident and a couple kids were killed. And so when we were there doing our investigation, Michelle asked the question, "Why are you here? Why haven't you moved on?" And we captured a child's voice saying, "I can't, I'm stuck." And so for me, I think that he knows he's dead, but he just can't find that way to what's next. And then the third one is the fear of retribution for the life they lived on Earth. So I think we see that a lot with jails and prisons.
Interesting. Yeah.
They're afraid because they were bad people here in life that they're going to get eternal punishment whenever they move on. And so I think that's the reason why we see those. And those are really the three theories that we work on. But, again, it's something that we'll never know until we actually pass.
Well said. Yes. And until we actually pass on, we really won't know. But three very good theories. I mean, I really do. You're very well thought out. And but
Thank
the
you.
one that does get me though is the children, like
Agreed.
confused, don't know where to go. I have a hard time with that one.
I do as well.
Yes, it's hard to believe that there wouldn't be something to guide them to where they need to go, or listen, we can go 100 different directions with God or angels or loved ones that should be bringing them with, but them passing on and just saying, just being stuck, it's hard for me to swallow that pill, right?
I agree. And really, there's only been two instances where I feel that we've actually communicated with children's spirits. One was in Hales Bar Dam, and another one was the Exchange Hotel in Gordonsville, Virginia. And it's not something that we routinely come across,
Yeah.
but when we do, to your point, it's one of those. When I heard that EVP from Hales Bar Dam, I was crushed. I mean, it really is one of those where it's like, this is really sad.
Yeah.
And so, but again, I can't, in my mind, that's the one theory that for me fits. And so that's kind of what we work on.
I mean, it's an explanation for children's voices being heard, especially intelligent ones. But anyways, we'll move on from that. That's a very sad subject. Hopefully, one day we'll be able to figure this whole thing out. And honestly, hopefully, it comes to a point to where the places that are being haunted by intelligent children, intelligent hauntings, can be helped to move on to the next step, because we know people can do that and people are gifted
Absolutely.
to be able to move them on. But anyways, there was a question. There's a couple questions here.
Yes, they're
I'll get to
talking
that
like
one.
crazy over here.
I know, but
I love it.
There was one that was fascinating that I was watching. Oh, geez, come on, you guys. Where is it?
Well,
Basically,
go ahead.
basically, it was Monster Radio, and he was saying, would the spirit box or EVPs work with the cryptids or creatures like that? I would say, listen, I don't think I've seen anything like that before, where people go to a site where like the Mothman has been, there was a sighting like that or something like that. Or the Dog Man, where there's a location where it's always being, we see it there all night, and bring the spirit box, try to get some EVP, and if anything would happen. Have you heard of anything like that?
I honestly haven't, and I will say my area of expertise is not in that field, even though I am fascinated by it. I'm
Yeah.
obviously more on the paranormal side. However,
Right.
the spirit box works because it's a manipulation of energy, and they're using the energy of that white noise to really communicate with us. There's nothing really physical about it. They're not touching it or manipulating it that way. It's essentially picking up their energy, if you will, their communication energy. For more of a cryptid type, I think that's more, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, more of a physical. And so unless they're able to somehow manipulate that energy, I don't know if the spirit box would actually work with that.
Right. Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting question, because whereas
is.
we do say physical, and we are talking ghost here, but on the cryptid side of things, but then we can get into the deeper issue of Mothman and stuff, which is physical, but kind of supernatural.
Natural, right.
So, listen, it would be nice to see somebody go out and actually do some investigating in that way. So, it's something that can be done, I would say. Let me get to Ranhen's question here real quick, and we still got like 4 more EVPs to play, but Tanya Mendoza, good evening to you. Stair Pike, cheerio, my good friend. Good to see you. And Yeah, now they're asking tons of questions. What's slow down, slow down.
Well,
Uh,
I can answer Ranhan here, and
yeah, let's go ahead.
first of all, thank you all for your comments and questions. And I'm trying to watch the dialogue go back and forth, and you guys
That's
are
right.
really great. You got a great audience here. So to the question about demonic spirits, or any type of spirit possession, for us personally, and I'll just say this, my belief structure is that when we're going into these locations, we're attempting to communicate with spirits that had a human existence. They were born, they lived, they died, and for some reason we can now communicate with them because they haven't moved on. I
Right.
don't think a demon falls into that realm. To me, a demon is something that is the representation of the evil, of the good and evil of the world, and it never really had a human existence. So
Right.
because of that, we don't go looking for demonic, and we really, to my
But do
knowledge, we
they
haven't
show up?
I do know that they have been there. There are locations where demons are there, and they're possible. We don't go looking for them. If there was a location where we found or felt something that was demonic, we would back out of that space and say, okay, this is not what we're intending to do. This is not
Okay.
who we're here to communicate with. When we go into a location, we say a prayer of protection, and then we set our expectations and our boundaries for anything inside that location. By that, I mean, we say, we're here to communicate with you and tell your story. That's our legitimate reason for being here. We're not here to provoke. We're not here to get you to leave. We're not here. We just want to tell your story. And if there's somebody that doesn't want to communicate with us, that's fine. We will leave you to your space because we understand that this is your space. And so because of that, I think we get a respect level because we go in with that respect. And so we've never really had anything that has possessed us or harmed us or physically threatened us in any way. And so I think it's really in the approach, because we don't go in with bravado. We don't go in with chest thumping or provoking. That's really not who we are.
Well, there is a lot of times, and I get what you're saying. A lot of times where demons or non-human entities who have passed on, ghosts per se, uh, do end up being demons or something a bit more evil, something we don't understand. They kind of try to trick you into these. We're just getting it's haunted by somebody. You've never been tricked that way, or you were investigating something and got a demonic voice while you were
Not
investigating?
not anything, again, not anything that I would consider demonic. Now, I will say, if you're a jerk in life, you're probably gonna be a jerk in death. So there are
Right,
locations that I consider that we've investigated where we've had things that I would consider dark. But I'm not saying it's demonic. I'm just saying it's a
right,
darker, negative, I don't want you in my space type of a feeling. And
right.
again, that's where we say, okay, we're gonna leave a voice recorder in here. If you want to communicate with us, that's the way to do it. Otherwise, this is your space, and we
Yeah,
respect that, and we have other places on the location that we'll go to, and that's really
gotcha.
kind of how we handle it. I know we've got a couple clips coming up with Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary, and that's
Yeah,
one location where we did feel that. Right, there's a location up on the second floor, it's the auditorium, just didn't feel great in that area, and so all we did was leave a voice recorder, and we didn't go back into that space that night. And
okay.
that's how we approach our investigations, because we're not there to piss off anything. We're not there to provoke anything. We're there to really investigate for the investigation's sake, if that makes sense.
Okay, and real quick, and we'll get to the next clip.
Mhm.
Have you ever encountered black-eyed kids? Anything like I doubt it, but
No,
yeah.
no, we haven't. And honestly, that would probably be my point where I'm like, okay, I can take a lot, but
I'm out of here.
dolls and black-eyed kids, I'm like, that's
What is
probably not
with
my.
dolls? I don't. I get. You know what? I'll look at it and I'll get it. Antique dolls for some reason. It's crazy. Listen, horror movies, dolls, mannequins. Uh,
Mhm.
I guess because it's something of human form that isn't real, and it gives off that kind of just eeriness to it. So I get it.
Mhm.
I get it. Listen, why'd I even say that? And I know I got a ton of questions, but if I miss your questions, you guys, I am so sorry. I'm going to try to hold a spot here and slowly go down after we get to this, but no promises. I will try. So the next one is going to be the Brushy Rocks. This is where you were
Mhm.
just saying. So I guess any other lead up to this clip?
Okay, so this is in Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary, which is it was a former maximum security penitentiary that was in operation from 1896 to 2009, and then it said vacant, and the current owners obviously allow paranormal investigations to take place, and so we've investigated there twice. This first time, I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. Sorry.
That's all right.
The clip we're about to show you, we had set up a stationary camera in one of the cell blocks, and during the night, rocks from an unknown origin started just pelting this camera. It happened for about 3 or 4 hours. So what I put together here was a montage of the rocks being thrown at this camera, and it's really kind of fascinating because now we have a physical manifestation of something throwing these rocks, and there was nobody else in the cell block. There was only 3 of us on this investigation that night. There was just us and a docent that was there, and that's it on the entire property. So this is kind of an interesting clip.
Okay. So this was while everybody was there during the investigation.
It was
overnight.
during the investigation, but the camera, we have about 10 stationary cameras that we set up in different
Right.
locations around the property that we're investigating, and they just run on their own. And so this was one of those cameras. So we're in a completely different building
Gotcha.
for most of the time this is going on.
Okay, there you go. Okay. RTN, that's a poltergeist, isn't it? Well, yeah, could be. Who knows? Who knows? Here we go. Okay, so here I go. This is the question, because you were there, you know what was going on. When you came back to get the camera, did you see little pebble-like things, or because see me looking at it, I'm like going, "This is an old prison. There's paint chips that are falling, and it could easily just be that."
And you're absolutely right, except for a couple of things. One, it did not happen the entire night. It was really in the span of about 3 hours where this thing was just being pelted, and then it stopped for the rest of the night. Because we were there for, I think on this investigation, we were there for about 8 to 9 hours. And so it was only in this about 3-hour window. And this is the only camera, and we, like I said, we have 10 of them that were set up in different cell blocks. This is the only one that this happened to. The other ones were perfectly fine.
Okay.
And when we went back, I wasn't looking for rocks because I didn't know to look for the rocks, because we
Right.
don't we don't watch these live. We just
Yes.
record, and then we go back when we get home and watch that.
Okay.
And so I kind of, I'm not sure if it's poltergeist activity. One of the things that the docent told us is that routinely inmates would throw things down at the guards. They'd throw things off their cells. And
Gotcha.
so for me, it almost felt like they knew the camera was there, and it was almost like they're trying to get the camera to stop watching them. That's kind of how I took it. So I think it's actually the spirits of the inmates who are still there, because Brushy is
Okay.
a fantastically haunted location.
Gotcha. Okay, so really quick, after you capture an EVP, do you return to the location and attempt to cross them over? Leanne Richey says.
Leanne, thank you for that question. No, we actually, I don't profess to have that ability to cross something over. If we go investigate a location where the owner wants that spirit crossed over, then we have people that we will contact. We have priests, we have demonologists. I even know a shaman that would help with that. But for my team and I personally, we don't have. I don't possess that ability or have that that gift to do that.
Okay, and thank you, Seth DeWelch. Seriously,
Thank you,
this is an
Seth.
awesome show. Appreciate it. Another quick question. I know we'll get through the clips. Believe me, we still got like 35 more minutes. So we're good. We're good. Monster Radio asks, now here's a big question. It's a big one, Kris. Could any paranormal methods be utilizing in the study of the Yadlushi skinwalkers? Whatever. People say they are supernatural. So is there a chance?
Anything is possible. And again, I appreciate that question. For me, the way we approach this is anything is possible, especially in this realm where we're all working on theories. We're all working on trying to study the unknown. And so if there's a technique that could be cross-utilized for that, I think it would be fascinating, especially if they are part of what we call that supernatural realm. So there are several techniques. For me, trigger items are a big thing. Try to take something and use it for a different purpose, for example, or to try to elicit a response. For example, we take cigarettes or music is a big trigger item for us that we take in locations, different things to try to elicit a response. So that could be a paranormal technique that could be used for a study like that, or a cryptid study. But for me, I think that because they kind of go hand in hand, that people should try to utilize different techniques. Absolutely.
Yeah, very well said. And listen, this has got to be said. When RTN comes up with something,
I just saw it.
he is our resident comedian, and I love the guy. Denny is awesome, but he says you can hug a priest, but please don't squeeze the shaman.
I think he's been waiting for a guest to say the word shaman on your show just so
Right?
he could use that. I mean, it has that feel like he was ready with it.
Listen, Kris, every night there's something coming out of him where it's just funny. And listen, Denny has gone through a lot. He's been through cancer, his intestines. He still goes through going through the chemo and stuff. So we've said prayers upon prayers. He knows how much we love him on the channel, but
Absolutely.
to keep up his attitude like that is just awesome. So another really quick thing, and you touched on it already. Any purification or rituals before an investigation? Yes, she always does do that.
Mhm.
You touched on that a little bit earlier,
Absolutely.
Connie, and just trying to catch up real quick. I think we're caught up. Any more questions before the end, feel free to put them in the chat. And so we are now at the Old Southern Funeral Home. So talk
Mhm.
about that, and we'll play some EVPs.
Okay, so this is an investigation that we did in Kosciuszko, Mississippi, which is a very small town in Mississippi. And it was actually interesting because the people who run the funeral home also run the Attalla County Jail, which I sent you a clip from that one as well.
Mm.
And so on this investigation, it was just my twin sister and I. And this was the very first funeral home that we investigated, but it was a very active location for us. And so during this night, it really seemed like almost every piece of equipment that we had wanted to interact with Jenny, my twin sister. So we captured her name on several EVPs. When she would have the K2 meter during the night, it seemed like the spirits really wanted to gravitate toward Jenny for that night. And so the clip that I showed you, we had just conducted an EVP session in the upstairs room where the casket viewing area was. And so we left the stationary voice recorder and a camera there. So as you see us leaving the room, the voice recorder in the room captured Jenny's name. And, you'll go ahead and hear that here.
Okay, so here we go. EVP. There you go, Jenny. It's right there. I hear it. I hear it.
And it's kind of interesting because it has a little bit of an accent, like Jenny.
Yeah.
But that was like I said, an interesting
Old Southern.
investigation.
So
And we're in deep South Mississippi for sure at that location. And so again, the funeral home was really kind of neat. It's like I said, the first one that we had investigated, but funeral homes are very active, right? You have all of this emotion, this usually negative emotion in these walls, and it just seems like it just kind of permeates there. But the Old Southern Funeral Home was a very cool investigation.
Oh yeah. Overkill. Good to see you here. And listen, this the second time he said it. I kind of looked past it the first time because I'm like, Do I answer? But I'll ask it. Have you ever befriended a ghost?
Befriended, I think so. And I'll go back to the Ma Barker house with this one,
Okay.
because I was so fascinated with the Ma Barker house. I actually volunteered to become a docent there. And so I was a docent for about a year. And so I would be responsible for leading the tours, giving, obviously the paranormal speeches, giving the historical speeches for that location. And so I would routinely be in the house by myself. And I would walk in and I'd say, "Good morning, Ma. Good morning, Fred." And there would be sometimes where there'd be a response. You'd hear a knock upstairs. There was a couple times where you heard a hey. And so I think I formed a connection with them. I like to believe that I did, just
Right.
because, like I said, that
You're
house
so
to me is
connected.
just so fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And there's the link. Thank you,
Yeah.
RTN, for the
Thanks, RTN. And thank you for the
yeah.
867-5309. I was waiting for somebody to put that up there.
Yeah, Jenny. Yeah. Well, and Monster Radio says, Southern Jenny A. Imagine if the follow up was, "I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is." I don't know. Anyways, I'm not going to sing. So let's get to the next one, which is also it's the Atla.
Attalla.
Yeah, Attalla.
Attalla.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is the Attalla County Jail, which is just down the road from the old Southern Funeral Home. So the weekend we were there, we actually investigated the funeral home on Friday night and then the Attalla County Jail on Saturday night. So this was a really long weekend for us. But the Attalla County Jail is kind of, again, a very interesting location. It was in operation from the early 1950s up until about the early 2000s. And one of the things about Mississippi in general is it's one of the only states that had a traveling electric chair. They actually put a chair in the back of a truck,
Oh,
and they
geez.
took it from jail to jail,
Wow.
and they would do the executions in the back of the truck. And so this was one of the stops along that along that route. And so there's also several suicides and such. So it's a very active location. So again, Jenny and I were the only two people in the building during the night. And again, we had those stationary voice recorders and those stationary cameras set up all over the building. So at one point during the night, Jenny and I were sitting in the solitary confinement cell, and we were asking questions, and we heard the response in the moment, but the voice recorder in the evidence locker, which was about 50 feet down the hallway, actually picked up the response. So you hear me say, "What was the name of your best friend?" And this is the response that we captured.
Okay, so here we go.
Who's your best friend? Peter, your best friend? Who's your best friend? Peter, your best friend? Who's your best friend? Peter, your best friend?
Well, I guess Pete was his best friend. So yeah,
Yeah,
very
it's
interesting and clear. So yeah,
yeah, it was a really interesting EVP for us, and like I said, we could hear it in the moment. I actually thought he said Peter, but it came out Pete when we listened to that voice recorder. So it's just, again, one of those things where we feel that the spirits were really wanting to communicate with us that night, because we captured several interesting things in that location.
nice. Hello, Adam for Christ. What's going on? Good to see you again. Yeah, the funeral home again. Is
Mhm.
there a certain location that is more active, or is it just basically on the situation itself? If you know what I'm saying.
It really does depend on, the kind of the location and the events that happen there.
Right.
For us, the Lizzie Borden house was extremely active, even though just this one main, obviously it was tragic, but this one main event in 1892 where they were killed. But jails and prisons, I really think because of the longevity that most of them have, like, for example, the one I'm in right now was built in 1904. It was in operation as a jail until 2008. So right outside the front door here, we had a sheriff killed ambush style. It's still an unsolved murder. We've had 9 hangings upstairs. We've had natural deaths here over the longevity of that jail. And so for me, I think that prisons and jails really have a higher propensity to have activity, simply because it really, the events inside that building really span a longer time span than most other locations.
Yeah, and more events, right? So
Mhm.
over a longer period, you're going to get more and more and more events, more deaths, more
Exactly.
everything, and just the
Exactly.
atmosphere alone. So,
Mhm.
uh,
Exactly.
hey, hey, Zardoz, what's going on? There was something. What did I miss here? I guess. Oh, Ran Hen. Are spirits always low talkers? Listen, that's. I don't know
Uh,
if you're being a smart aleck or not, but listen. Yeah,
we've had some screams, we've had some yells,
yeah.
we've had a few of those,
I
so
think
it's,
it's just however strong the energy is that can get, the
mhm,
stronger the energy, the louder the sound, right? Most
mhm,
of these you don't even really hear
exactly.
until you go home and review the evidence,
Yeah,
so
and to your point, that's absolutely right. So, and that's what makes our process a little bit more tedious than those that you see on a YouTube channel or a live stream on TikTok or Instagram,
yeah,
because I've got 10 voice recorders, and so we record for the amount of time we're there. So if I've got 10 voice recorders running for 10 hours, I'm listening to 100 hours of audio, because what I do is and my team members, we put on our headphones, we hit play, and we listen to it exactly as it was captured. So we don't put it through any audio software. We don't put our videos through any video software. We listen and watch in the raw for that very reason, because some things we may not hear in the moment. It's not until you go back and listen. So for example, the Lizzie Borden,
yeah.
Cara and Jenny didn't hear that EVP in the moment. It wasn't until we went back and listened that we captured it. And so that's how we conduct our investigations.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. Leanne Roche says, do spirits communicate by bangs, tapping, and talking alone, or will they write in talcum powder or other ways? I saw an episode of Ghost Hunter where
Mhm.
where they actually did the talcum powder thing and got some prints of sorts. So, have you ever used that in any of your
we
investigations?
we have not had any luck with the talcum powder, but
Okay.
we do have some special equipment that we take with us, that we have gotten communication from, i.e. the spirit box, our K2 meters. We have what we call an EDI box, which measures vibration. And so those are some of the visual things that we pick up on. Now, we also take, especially if we think that there's going to be children, we have glow in the dark balloons. And
Hmm.
so we'll put them around, and there have been instances where they will be manipulated and run around, or move around. We've had door slams and such, and so that's a form of communication. But for us, the talcum powder has not worked, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, yeah. And to the other question with the bangs and the taps, that's just another way of getting something to answer you, like with a yes or
Mhm,
no question. You know what I mean? So it's definitely used a lot with paranormal investigators. It's a way of
mhm.
getting a response. Goomba does say, "Are ghosts tied to the place they died?"
From what we found, we believe that they are. That is not to say that I do believe that they can move around to different locations. But for example, here in this location that I'm sitting right now, which was the historic Scott County Jail, we
Mhm.
do believe that Richard Ellis is here because he was killed right outside the front door. Like I said, it's an unsolved murder, and so I do think that's why he stays here. Right, it was his last connection to this world. And my belief is until his murder is solved, he's going to remain here.
Right.
So from our experience, the entities and the spirits that we've spoken to at the locations that we've gone were there for a reason.
I wonder if some of these spirits just, 80 years have gone, unless time is irrelevant. Let's
Mhm.
just let's say time is relevant, okay? And 80 years has gone by, and this guy's going, you know what? Nobody's ever going to figure out this crime. It's been 80. years. I mean, I'm leaving. I'm going. When that light appears again, because it does every Sunday, I'm hitting it. I mean, who knows? That
Yeah.
may be the case, right?
It could be, but it's, it is again one of those things that, and that's what makes us
You
feel
just
so
don't know.
fascinating. Yeah, we don't know, and that's why when you have somebody say, "Okay, I'm a paranormal expert, I can do this and that," that to me is a bunch of hokum. I don't claim to be an expert. I have experience, but there can be no expert in this field because of that reason. We're all learning, we're all growing, we're all using
Right.
different techniques. So for me to say that my technique is better than this team's technique, that to me is hooey, because there is no expert in this field. And so it's all based on unknowns. And again, that's what makes it so fascinating.
Boy, and I tell you, it's I've got a page here of stuff that I want to get to, and I'm not going to be able to get to some of it. But listen, that's all right, because maybe down the road I'll have you back again. But
That'd be great.
there is one question I do want to hit on. But really quick, one girly girl, Ginger, she asks, because I just want to talk about this, because I think this has been debunked. There's a legend of children pushing stalled cars over railroad tracks, and if you put powder on your bumper, you'll see their handprints. The handprint thing is controversial.
Hmm.
The pushing of the car, I
Hmm.
think it's been tested
Hmm.
between levels, and however they do that, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That it's an optical illusion.
it
The
is.
car, you put it in, neutral, whatever, and it'll roll back, and they think it's children, or forward, and they think it's children pushing forward. Uh, you've heard of that, right? And I think that's the
Mhm.
case.
Yeah, there's several locations like that. There's one down in Florida, Spook Hill. It is an optical illusion. I mean, you look at it and you swear that this road is going uphill, and you put
Yeah,
it in neutral, and the car starts going in neutral uphill, but it's an optical illusion.
yeah, yeah.
But there are a lot of, again, things we can't explain. So, maybe maybe people have seen it. I have never seen,
Right.
handprints on a bumper.
Gotcha. Really quick, and we do got one more EVP, one more video. We will play it. We got about 20 minutes left here. So, question, not sure if this is answered. What was the most scary thing has your group seen or heard?
I would say probably in the Exchange Hotel, which is in Gordonsville, Virginia. This is a hotel that was converted to a Civil War hospital, and it actually has 700 verified deaths between the men, both Confederate and Union, that it saw during the time of the Civil War. So there's a
Mm,
lot of activity in this location, and it wasn't really scary per se. I mean, we had trepidation in the moment, but there was a shadow figure there, and then we captured two amazing EVPs in that location. Probably some of the best DVPs that we've captured were at the Exchange Hotel. So to be able to hear that, we did not hear them in the moment, but when we heard them on the voice recorder, it was really fascinating. And to me, that was like, okay, this is a very active location.
yeah. Okay. So Goom, and good question, Connie.
Thanks, Connie.
Guma says another question really quick. Can they be tied to a favorite place rather than where they died if they aren't tied? I say that's a yes, but go ahead.
Mhm. Yeah, to me, I say yes. For example, like I said, even though the Ma Barker house was on this piece of land, they moved with the house. So I'm not saying that that's their favorite location, but it's where they died.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do believe that. So when going back to the story with my Nana, she died in hospice, but we had what we feel was communication with her in her house that she shared with my granddaddy. And so I do believe that they can move that way. But maybe if you're a spirit, you're comfortable in this location. Like, I don't think Richard Ellis is anywhere else. I think he's here. The guy that was killed right outside our front door in 1925. I think he's here because this place was comfortable for him, and it was the last place on earth that he had a connection to.
Right. Yeah, and I've heard story after story after story of children who live across the country, and their parents end up passing away,
Hmm.
and the time of death, 2 a.m., whatever.
Hmm.
Uh, Somebody was standing at the end of my bed at 2 a.m.
Hmm.
and I feel like it, and then so it doesn't matter, I think, where you are on the planet. If it's somewhere they need to go or be, that's where they're going to appear, if they
Yeah.
appear at all. But right?
Absolutely. Exactly.
Mm.
And you know, for me personally, I don't think every person who dies becomes a spirit or a ghost.
Oh
You
no.
know,
Yeah.
like I said, my belief structure is that we are going to ascend to, I'll call it heaven. We're going to ascend to heaven. But I think that there are some instances where there are some spirits who are closer to the veil and are allowed to communicate. So, you know, that's why we don't have every person who dies as a spirit. And so maybe for your example, when they die in California and a child, you know, sees them in New York, they're supposed to see that. They're supposed to get that message, and then the spirit will ascend on, and because that's their unfinished business.
Right, right. Yes, agreed. And again, hello, JLR. Good to see you. Asked or not asked, but it does make a point similar to what we were talking about, the car rolling, the House of Mystery here in Oregon, and yes, the House of Mystery, optical illusion, where objects in the ball will roll in a direction that it shouldn't be, but it's just the way it looks.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what show I seen that on. It was one of the paranormal shows, but it's been documented over and over and over and tested.
Mm-hmm.
Because when something like that happens, you know, it's like, what is this? Why is it? So it's been tested. Anyways, let's get to the last clip
Okay.
of the evening, and this has been great, but we still got a good
One
15 minutes
more.
to go. Brushy excerpt.
Yep. So this is it. We're going back to
Shadow.
Brush.
Yeah.
Yep. We're going back to Brushy Mountain. So this is actually a video clip, not an EVP clip, even though there is a short EVP in there. All right. So this is at Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary. And this was actually a collaboration investigation that we had done with Ghost Biker. And so there were 3 Soul Sisters paranormal investigators, and then Miranda and her camera guy, Josh. So there's 5 of us in the gymnasium. And so it's a full-size gym. So we had put some items in the middle of the gym. So we had a glow in the dark bulb, we had some REM pods, we had a couple of things that gave off ambient light. And we're standing probably about 20, 25 feet back from the middle of these objects that are in the middle of the gym. And so we're in a semicircle, and at the end of the semicircle, Miranda is holding an SLS camera, which generally speaking is a camera that's been modified to map out anomalies if it senses something in the room in front of it. And so as we're standing in this semicircle, we're asking questions, and I see a shadow run from my right to left, and it blocks off my line of view from everything in the middle of the room. And at the same time, Miranda is seeing this on her SLS camera. And so her camera guy, Josh, is filming the camera and then pans up. And as he pans up, you can see the shadow run. He captures it, run again from left to right, and it cuts off the very quickly. It cuts off the lights there in the middle of the gym. So we play it twice on here, and the second time I kind of zoom in on the 2 elements.
Okay, shadow people. I mean, listen, I love shadow figures. So here we go. Because I had an incident when I've said it many times on the paranormal show, but when I was a kid, my grandparents, they brung, when they passed on, it all ended, but they brung every house they went to. There was so much activity. It's not
Wow.
even funny. But
Wow.
anyways, here we go. Here's the clip. Here we go.
All right, this is the gymnasium, so let's play. Yep, lots of things to play with. You want to walk up to any one of these things? Is there something in front of the REM pod?
I mapped something right from the REM pod.
Is there something in front of the right of the REM pod? It's a black shadow.
I just mapped something.
Did you
there.
see it?
Yes.
Holy shit. Did anybody else see the big black shadow?
There it is again.
Oh my God.
There it is again.
As we play this clip once more, we have zoomed in first on the SLS camera that Miranda was holding, and then on the REM pod, so that you can see the shadow that crosses in front. You want to walk up to any one of these things? Is there something in front of the REM pod?
I mapped something right from the REM pod.
Is there something in front of the right of the REM pod? It's a black shadow.
I just mapped something.
Did you
there.
see it?
Yes.
Holy shit. Did anybody else see the big black shadow?
There it is again. Oh my God. There it is again.
Wow. Okay. So the camera she was holding, that little figure we see on there, that's what she
Yeah.
was mapping out.
Right. So if you look at it, and it's obviously a really quick clip. So if you go back and
Mhm.
watch the full episode, I explain it a little bit more.
Okay.
But if you're watching that clip, you'll see that it flashes what we call a stick figure anomaly on that screen.
Mm.
And so because she was holding it still, it should not have done that. Um, and so the fact that it did it right as I physically saw the shadow figure, to us is pretty interesting because now I've got a visual that
Yeah.
I physically seeing, and she's picking it up with our piece of equipment. And so there were so many things that happened that night, but that one is really compelling because when you zoom in, you see it, a very quick shadow run in front of those red lights, which is on our REM pod there at the end.
Okay. Very, very cool. Again, I think that's one of the videos I definitely want to be there to see that because it's hard to pick up in the dark room, the shadows, but you could see it go
Mhm.
past the light and on that camera. So yeah, if you guys have any more questions, again, be sure to check out the link below for their website where you can get to the YouTube channel or just search up Soul Sisters Paranormal on YouTube. But I'd like to talk about a couple other things that kind of I saw. You just investigated not long ago the USS North Carolina.
We did.
What was that like?
That was fantastic. For those that don't know, the USS North Carolina was commissioned in 1937, and it was the first battleship commissioned after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And so it was in operation from 1941 to 1947, and then in 1961, it actually became a museum. And so
Mm.
they allow you to have paranormal investigations there. And again, this is just Jenny and I on this ship, and it was absolutely fascinating. We were capturing footsteps. We are capturing disembodied voices, a lot of bangs, a lot of phantom smells, which don't really obviously translate very well over camera, but you can
Right.
hear us talk about perfume in several locations as well as cigar smoke, which is
Mm.
interesting because that's a physical reaction that we're having.
Yeah.
And so yeah, just again, just the history behind the USS North Carolina, and then to be able to be on that ship and really have that tactile experience with that history. To us, it was just absolutely fascinating and a location that I'm really anxious to get back to.
Nice, nice. Perfume.
Mhm.
It's got to be. Listen, were there any females on this?
There weren't. However, you know that when guys would get stuff in the mail from their wives
Letters,
or whatever,
letters.
because it was right out to, and that's where I'm connecting this,
Yeah.
because it was right near the post office location, and
Okay.
so that's really the only way that I could connect it, and so
Sense.
again, extremely interesting location. There was down. It was during the war. It was hit once with a torpedo, and the Japanese so feared this battleship that 6 times they claimed that they had sunk it for propaganda, but obviously they hadn't. But it did get hit once with a torpedo, and so we went down and investigated that torpedo crash, that torpedo hit area, which is down in the very lower level of the battleship. And we had set up a voice recorder and a stationary camera there. And at one time during the night, we had done an EVP session. And as we were leaving, about 10 minutes after we left, we captured an EVP saying, "Take me with you." Again, to me, that was one of the most heartbreaking EVPs that we captured because it's almost like, take me with you when you go. And
Right.
so that was a very cool EVP. But I highly encourage anybody who is in the Wilmington, North Carolina area to visit the USS North Carolina,
Oh yeah.
not just for the paranormal, but for the history as well. It's a great, great location.
Listen, yeah, I love this with dates and history and everything else that's going on. I mean, it's fascinating.
Mhm.
Have you been able to get to Gettysburg? Yes, yet.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So
Okay.
we've been to Gettysburg several times.
Okay.
Not so much to do a full scale investigation of the battlefields. Now we did do one of the
Okay.
Farnsworth Inn, which is one of the oldest bed and breakfast there in Gettysburg, and we did have some interesting experiences there. We have not released any of that yet, but yeah, we had some
Okay.
interesting experiences there. There is the spirit of a child that's supposed to be in that location. The night that we were there, it happened to be during their off season. So there were 4 of us, and we had 2 double rooms,
Mhm.
and we were all, we were all in our rooms, and, there was a shadow that kept crossing, under our door because the doors are, there's a little bit of space
Yeah.
between the door and the floor, so you could see a shadow walking back and forth throughout the night, which is kinda interesting, and then we had set up a night vision video camera in the bathroom, and the bathroom had the old style toilets where you pull the chain to
Yeah.
plunge it, and, during the night, this chain just started just swinging, which was kind
Mm.
of fascinating. So we have all of that on camera. Again, we have not released it yet, but, it
Upcoming video on the channel. There you go.
exactly, there you go.
I can't wait to see that. Yeah, no, the Civil War. I'm a Civil War buff. Listen,
Mhm,
I love. We could talk about 20s. Listen, I'm a history buff. Let's just say
mhm,
that Civil War has always interested me with when it becomes movies or anything else. But just all the atrocities
mhm,
that
yeah,
went on during the Civil War, all of the
mhm,
death. I mean, when you look back on it right now, Chris, the fact that a civil war would happen, people would put knives in their hand and forced, or not really forced, maybe some, but one side, the other side, and you just run at each other. I mean,
mhm, yeah,
if I was there, if there was a big line of people there and the Confederacy's there,
yeah,
the North is here, and they're looking at each other and they know that, hey, 70% of us are going to die. I know
mhm.
what the Civil War was all about, but I'm talking about war in
Oh,
general.
yeah, no,
Uh,
I agree.
how
It's
would you not stop yourself and say, listen, we're going to
I know.
kill each other, all of us, we're dead right now.
I know. It's different from modern war, right? Where you can sit in Washington and launch something into another country. But to your
Right.
point, when you're standing there and you're 150, 50 yards away
Mhm.
from a guy holding a musket or a gun at you, and
Yeah.
you're holding a gun at him, and it could be your brother or your cousin for all you know. It's just, to me, God bless them. God bless them, because
Yeah.
the fortitude to really fight for what they believed in, right or wrong. They
Right.
were out there and
Right.
they took the bullet for their beliefs, and not many people can say that they would do that anymore.
Oh, exactly. Listen, I mean, that's why I brought that up. I mean, it's just
Mhm,
and I do believe that that's why there's so much energy on a lot of these battlefields. And I wish there were more investigations, not inside buildings, but on these battlefields that literally thousands upon thousands of people died.
mhm.
There are some out there that have some really interesting stories behind them with EVPs and stuff like that that people have caught. But
Yeah.
uh, yeah,
G Gettysburg is a tough one, right? Because it's so popular, and, during the day, it's hard to rule
yeah,
out, noise pollution, and then during the night, they don't allow you on the battlefield. But there are several battlefields that do allow paranormal investigators at night, and there are several that we've been to during the day, Manassas, for example, and
mhm,
Chickamauga, where you can go out there during the day and capture some really cool EVPs when nobody else is around. So to
nice.
your point, battlefields are a very interesting location to investigate.
Right, right. Well, Connie, we're at the end here, but she says, really quick, have you gone to New Orleans? Because listen, that's supposed to be one of the more haunted places around, and it's got an interesting history. But
I've been to New Orleans several times, but not as a
nice.
paranormal investigator. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Not
okay.
not as a
Have
paranormal
fun.
investigator. Yeah, yeah, it's,
Gotcha.
yeah, but, I
Okay.
do I do intend to go back at some point. For us, we all have different careers, so
Yeah,
logistics plays a big part in what we do as well. So that kind of, we try to do 4 to 5 investigations a year. We can sneak in a few every now and then, but, that's really kind of
nice.
our limit just because of what we do.
Very good. And yes, we are going to have Miranda from Ghost Biker Explorations back on January 16th to talk about more things. And again, we're at the end of the show here, and I didn't get to. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about about haunted aviation, haunted
Mhm.
cemeteries, Sleepy Hollow. I wanted to get to, but
Uh,
you
you'll
know,
have to have me back on right after the
there
ghost
you
biker.
go. There you go. We'll definitely have you back on again, and uh, true crime and punishment. I
Mhm.
definitely want to talk about that, but we'll see what we can get to. But yes, thank you, RTN again. There's the link to
Yes.
the YouTube channel.
RTN, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who's been watching and commenting. I've been trying to read them as you go through, but just a great group of individuals here that you have, Dino, as fans. So
Thank you.
thank you all. I really do appreciate it. It really means a lot.
Yeah, thank you, and well said. And you were a great guest. Awesome. I love it, and I will definitely have you back on again. Good luck on your business there with Miranda down there at the jailhouse. And we didn't get to see too much of Sully, the jailhouse
No,
cat,
she's
but
back there sleeping right behind the door, but
there.
you can go to our website and she's up there. She's our little mascot.
Okay, there you
And
go. Yeah.
I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been commenting on the Soul Sisters Paranormal logo. That is something that we had commissioned, and it represents all aspects of what we do in the paranormal. So there's a lot of symbolism in what we do. So thank you.
Very cool. Yeah, I told her before the stream. I said I love on the logo the skeleton key
Mhm.
eyes you got
Yeah,
there, but
yeah, yeah.
everything about it's very cool.
Yeah, the eyes represent exploration, the heart represents love, the wings is, we wanted something a little more angelic and feminine. The halo is askew because we're not all perfect, and the
Right.
cross is for our Christian belief.
It, I love that you put so much thought into that. That's for sure. So I will let you go. Everybody, please check out the website in the link, the description below, because there's a lot more links there. I believe it's www.paranormal or no, Soul Sisters Paranormal.
SoulSistersParanormal.com.
.com. So
Yep,
very
and then Facebook is Soul Sisters Paranormal, and YouTube is Soul Sisters Paranormal.
okay. So pretty darn simple. And Kris, thank you. I'm going to put
Thank
you
you.
off to the side, and you can close out your browser anytime you want to leave.
Okay, thanks, Gina.
And I will be in contact with you in the future. But thank you, thank you, thank you. Made for a great show, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Okay, so there you go. You got Kris Sumner with Soul Sisters Paranormal. Another great show. Listen, I love it. I love the um, I love how much she is into what she's doing. You see it in the way she talks and all of the information she lets gets out there. And man, check out the YouTube channel. It's some good stuff. Uh, again, I keep saying better than Travel Channel. And listen, I still enjoy some of that stuff for the entertainment, but overall, I need something new. Don't poke the bear. I don't poke the bear. Dave the Rave. Hey, what's going on? But I don't mean I don't poke the bear. I don't know what that means, Dave the Rave. But anyways, I'm getting ready for the overnight stream tonight, you guys. It is a mixed bag of whodunit detective shows. So you guys should enjoy that. And what do I got coming up next here too? Saturday night is the trivia night for The Invisible Man from 1933. And then me and Ginger will be doing our movie discussion, Back to Giallo, 1972 classic, supposed to be The Red Queen Kills 7 times. And then next week we got Michelle Ballinger, Paranormal Into the Night. She's an occult expert. She's got like 40 books out there. She's been on Paranormal State. Listen, this is a big name in the paranormal field, and she lives right here in Northeast Ohio. So there you go. And will be a very interesting listen. We'll be talking about the occult, so that's for sure, amongst other things. So look forward to that and everything else we got going on this channel. So with that said, I will let you guys go.